Hi, this is Steve Sansweet, President and Chief Executive of Rancho Obi-Wan, and you're listening to Coffee with Kenobi with Dan Z. This is the podcast you're looking for.
Han Solo, Rebel Soldier, Lando Calrissian, and Bespin Guard, each sold separately. From Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back collection, new from Kenner.
Looking? Found someone you have, I would say.
Your lightsabers will make a fine addition to my collection.
I have Rey and Finn.
I have 3 of each. 1 to display, 1 to open, and 1 just in case.
Why?
This is Vanessa Marshall, Harrison Dula from Star Wars Rebels, and you're listening to Coffee with Kenobi.
Dan, it's great to have you on the show. We've got 2 Dans on the show. Dan Lanigan, of course, is a very well-known collector. And if you've heard of what is going on with the Saga Vault, then you know exactly what our good friend is here to talk about. Dan, why don't we go back to the beginning and talk about sort of how you got the collecting bug?
How did I become a collector? I think I started breathing and I was a collector. No, but seriously, I think it had to do with Star Wars action figures as a kid and comic books. My first real collection, though, was Star Wars action figures. I remember I'm old enough to have seen the first Star Wars, A New Hope, in the theaters when I was like 7. And I remember coming home and seeing a commercial. Actually, I didn't even see a commercial for the figures. A friend of mine at school had them. And I was like, Mom, you have to get me the 2 robots, C-3PO and R2-D2. And then a couple weeks later, she comes home and I was surprised. She hands me these 2 figures and I'm just ecstatic. And I look at it and it's like, R2-D2, yes. Stormtrooper, okay with that. And that was it. She thought the Stormtrooper was a robot because it kind of looks robot-y, right?
Sure.
So, and from then I was hooked. And love Star Wars. I generally love science fiction and fantasy stuff, cartoons, all that kind of stuff, and just developed buying all the figures and eventually reading comic books and collecting those. And then I've just kind of collected stuff all my life.
So in essence, we were separated at birth, but our mother gave us both the same name. Make it easier.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah. Very convenient. So, So is a lot of your collection, I mean, of course, you've got stuff from various places and times in your life, but do you have a lot of the ones, like you see the ones behind me? These are the ones, the Kenner figures I had growing up that I actually played with. Is a lot of your collection like that? And where do you stand on the open versus keep them sealed debate?
So it's a complicated initial part of the story, but I'll tell you real briefly. As I was, I had 3 older brothers, and they were all significantly older than me. So when I was, 7, my oldest brother was 18. So by the time I got to late grammar school, early high school, I wasn't clearly playing with my Star Wars toys. And my mom thought it would be a great idea to clean out all the toys in the basement and give them to my brother's kids, who he had, or a couple of my brothers had kids at the time. And once I found out, maybe a couple of weeks later after it happened, I had gone out of the basement. I'm like, hey, where's all my stuff? Because, I'd never wanted to get rid of it. Oh, I gave it to your brother. You weren't playing with that stuff anymore. And I just was like, and of course, I can't go to my nieces and nephews who are not that much younger than me, but young enough to be playing with the stuff, saying, give me my toys back. As a freshman in high school. So I had to accept that. Eventually, I got one thing back from that collection. It was my Darth Vader action figure case that somehow never got destroyed. So I got that back from my sister-in-law. She found it and gave it to me. She knew it was important to me. That's the only thing I have left from my Star Wars collecting when I was a kid. But I have since bought a lot of figures, not the actual ones that I play with, not the vintage ones. I haven't collected those, but I have collected the characters. And now that I've got kids, I let my kids play with my Star Wars toys. Yes, I am not. I do have some pieces that are still in packages, but not by intention. I feel that my impression is that if you got the Star Wars toys, you should play with them, and that's I like to. Back then, I would open them up and pose them and do all the kind of crazy stuff. And to this day, I still have a lot of. When I buy a high-end action figure like Hot Toys, I take it out of the box and I put it on a shelf, and I have fun with it.
You know what? I'm the same way. Once you become a dad yourself, and you look at your toys, and we have 3 boys. 2 are much older now, but they say, "Dad, can I play with this?" And I found myself in this moral quandary.
Yes.
We're like, well, it's in good shape. And they're like, you know what?
They're a collectible.
That's right. That's right. So
I joke, but I understand that perspective.
Yes, absolutely. And then fortunately, a lot of the modern toy companies would start to re-release like retro packaging and retro figures. So I'm like, all right, you can have all these Kenner figures, but they can be yours. They look almost identical. You'll never know the difference. So he played with mine. Then he got his own. And then you've got both. And now we're at a place where if he gets something, he has the same conversation I have. Well, do I want to keep this in the package? Does it look better like this? Or do I just want to open it up and pose it? And often we end up opening it up, which if you would have told me 5 years ago, I never would have believed I would have said that.
Wow. Yeah. Well, we change, not just as humans, but as collectors as well.
Absolutely. Well, what are some of your favorite pieces from the original Kenner Star Wars line? Are there certain pieces, whether you have or don't have, where you're just like, this isn't a major part?
I love the Cantina characters from A New Hope. Hammerhead was my favorite. Alien. I dug 3PO and R2 a lot. I liked the R2 figure. Yoda was a big find for me when it first came out, and I got that. And then probably my end all be all favorite Star Wars toy is the AT-AT.
Yes,
the AT-AT I was obsessed with, and I was very fortunate to get it for Christmas that year. And
wow.
For many years, that was my favorite piece. In fact, to this day, it still is. That's one of the things I've gone out and bought since is the original AT-AT. And I have the modern versions as well as master replicas and model versions. I've got, like, you name it, somebody created an AT-AT toy or a statue or a figure, I've picked it up.
So that includes the Power of the Force one, which is basically the same thing.
Yes.
Which is brilliant. I assume you've been on Rise of the Resistance at either Disney World or Disneyland.
I have.
So you're underneath that 1/1 scale AT-AT. Pretty spectacular.
Spectacular. Yeah, I just wanted to stay in that room, and they rush you through that thing. It's like you can't just hang out there and go, yeah. Right. Although it is the more modern version of the AT-AT.
Yes, it is.
I'm not. I wish they would decide at some point to do a refurbish of that ride and make it classic, and just make all the stormtroopers like the Imperial, the Resistance, or what do they call the
Resistance and the First Order.
The First Order. Take those First Order troopers and turn them into stormtroopers. Take the AT-AT, make it into a traditional AT-AT, and just rechange the story and make Luke instead of Rey. I know it's too expensive, but man, would that be awesome.
I would be very much for that. You and I are of a very similar age and similar passions. Well, I really like the new stuff. The classics are what made kind of Star Wars what it is, really what it is. So then we fast forward, and not only are you a Star Wars collector, but you've bridged out. You mentioned numbers of other cartoons, things. Were there other certain lines? Like I would say, Star Wars is of course my favorite. But if I was forced to pick a favorite action figure line, it would be G.I. Joe. What about you?
G.I. Joe. Yes, I did have a number of those when I was a kid. I enjoyed those. I don't know. Outside of Star Wars, I like the Micronauts figures. I like the Dungeons and Dragons figures. LGN did. I really like those. What else? I was at the very beginning of He-Man, so I liked some of that stuff as well. I dug the He-Man stuff. But honestly, for me, it's, like now to this day, it's about the character. So if I see a cool figure that I recognize the character and it's well sculpted or has really interesting interaction, I'll still pick it up. And usually the figures that I like now are more in the $200 range and not the $6 range, what I used to collect. I still buy those stuff, and honestly, I still pick up some of those things for my son who's 6 now, and he does enjoy that stuff. That and Legos, he's a big fan. But
I love it.
Yeah. But yeah, I would say probably the LGN Dungeons and Dragons. I've went and rebought all those original figures because those got destroyed as well, or sent to a family member. I don't know what my mom did with those, but I went and bought those original figures as well. That was a big one for me to track down.
So would you say, though, because of course you have got the Saga Vault, a brand new YouTube series created for Star Wars fans, collectors, and anybody interested in nostalgia and cultural impact of the franchise, where did the gap go from just being a collector just for fun to becoming, dare I say, a professional collector?
I think when I started, that journey kind of started when I started collecting movie props.
Yes.
And all different types of film-related, artifacts connected to the production or pre-production of a film. And around that time, probably I was collecting for original movie props for about 10 years before I had my first opportunity to kind of work in the industry. And I kind of took that knowledge of effects and the making of film that I had always researched even before I started collecting movie props, because I was obsessed with the making of films, especially the original Star Wars, like those making of Empire and Jedi. Oh my gosh, I watched those things 100 times. Or the Raiders making of documentary, because I love Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Me too.
I kind of dove into that, and then my two passions, film and props and collecting, kind of merged when we developed the show for Disney Plus, Prop Culture. And then I wound up being the host for that, because initially when we developed it, I wanted to do a show that did the collecting community right. But I didn't want it to be about the price of these things. I wanted it to be about the passion. Yes. And ultimately, I wound up being the host for that. And we only did one season, but it was really great. Really enjoyed it, and that's kind of where my current level of YouTube shows kind of came of. Was like, well, I want to keep doing this for props. Let's do this on YouTube, and then that kind of developed in some other projects. Still working in the industry, developing documentaries and stuff, but the Saga Vault met the Steve Sansweet. I had met him briefly at Comic-Con years ago, and I knew Gus Lopez really well because he's a movie prop collector. Sure. And we had known each other for years. So we were talking about our goals, and I told him what I was doing for Cinema Relics. And he's like, hey, you should come meet the group. And, we started shooting some footage of those guys when they're in their planning modes for the Saga Vault or for the Saga Museum. And one thing led to another, and now we're doing the show, and it's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun.
It's a lot of fun. It's got a lot of fans excited. And it's just, you've got some of these, legendary collectors, because collecting, we talked about action figures a lot at the beginning of the show, but movie prop memorabilia, that's a whole other universe. Could be daunting, maybe not, but what kind of advice do you have for people who want to get into that area of collecting?
Collect from your heart, buy from your head, right? Collect stuff that you love, but don't allow that to overshadow something that is you don't do your research on, that's not legitimate, or that you're paying too much. Make sure you pay the right amount, because eventually, these pieces, if they're treated properly, they're going to last us beyond us, right? These movie props, these action figures and stuff, you want to make sure that you're treating it right, and it's going to have more value than when you buy it. I think that is ultimately something people need to be aware of. Unless you absolutely love it, you're never going to sell it, you're going to give it to your kids and they're going to love it as well. Well, that's different. But you have to, buy with your heart, or collect with your heart, but buy with your brain.
That's pretty good advice, just in general, I would say. Yeah. Do you remember what the first piece was where you're like, all right, this is a thing now?
Yes, it was what I thought was an original Who Framed Roger Rabbit toon gun.
Wow.
We've done an episode on our channel, YouTube channel, on Cinemark Investigates. But I thought it was an original tune gun used on set, and I bought it from a guy who had worked at ILM. He was a vice president of ILM at the time, and he had quit and he was on to another business. And he had this from his time there and was given as a gift from George Lucas, supposedly. And I bought it, and I was so happy with it. This is, 1999, maybe 1998. And turned out many years later, I found out it was a crew gift, and it wasn't what I thought it was.
Oh.
So it was disappointing. But, I think in some cases, people are malicious and they sell you stuff. They upsell a piece that's not right, possibly in the action figure world as well, or the toy world. In this case, I don't know if it was necessarily that, or it's just this guy's memory was bad and just decided to, thought it was original and it wasn't. But either way, it was disappointing. But since then, I've actually acquired an original one, so I am happy. And it's I learned a lot from that.
Oh, I'm sure, because I'm sure there's a very discerning, it takes a very discerning eye to know what you're getting hold of, trusting, who you're purchasing from, things of that nature. But what you just talked about, Dan, reminds me of why I love collecting so much. Collecting is about the moment and nostalgia, but it's really about the story. It's about the story that these pieces tell our hearts when we get them, and kind of how they enrich our lives in very different degrees, which leads perfectly to the Saga Vault. And how did the Saga Vault come to pass with the idea of we are telling stories that will last beyond us?
Well, the Saga Vault idea came together because as I and my creative partner, Jason Henry, were interacting with the Saga group and seeing all these amazing things and seeing that they needed more visibility in the world to help build this museum, because they were very well known within the collecting community, the Star Wars collecting community, but not on a broader scale. So it's like, what can we do that helps them, that's interesting for us to be involved in, and at the same time is fun to do? Because obviously I love Star Wars and I wanted to help them. I want to help them be successful building this museum. I think it's a really important thing. And the fact that, Lucasfilm has given them their blessing, which is almost unheard of because of their long-standing relationships with that organization, just makes me feel like this opportunity doesn't need to be missed. So what can we do to help? So we thought, well, what if we came up with a game show style? It's not really a game show, but kind of a game show style, and take some of these pieces that are going to go into the museum and put together a specific exhibit that's going to be in the museum that these pieces will live in, and turn that into a show. So make it a competition where, multiple collectors, whether they're in the initial group or extended people that want to be involved in the museum, because obviously there's going to need to be a lot of donations over the years to the museum, both financially and as well as material. Bring those people in and put together this, competition of taste. And by doing that, help the museum figure out what people want to see through the feedback we get from the show. And that's ultimately what we put together.
So you get together with these. So who are? I mean, I already know the answer. I think people listening know the answer. But for posterity's sake, who are the people that work on each episode of the Saga Vault with you?
So behind this, well, on camera, we've got Steve Sansweet and Ann Newman. Both of them are in episodes. We got Lisa Stevens and Vic Wirtz. They're married. They're a married couple that collect together, which isn't all that common, as we all know. We got Duncan Jenkins and his wife, Anne. She collects, but she doesn't collect Star Wars, but they are a collecting couple. And we got Gus Lopez. And Gus is, all these folks are super collectors. Then we have Red Dodge and Michael Wistock, who are part of the organization. They collect as well, but they're not at the same level as the main group. And then we've got Jimmy Mack, who is Rebel Force Radio, came in as a guest because we shoot the show in Chicago, and he's local in Chicago, and he came out and did a special guest on our episode that came out last week.
Right. So you're talking about people who know their stuff, who are passionate about it, and there's something beautiful in which is to help make the Saga Museum everything that we fans want it to be and more. Because, as Steve has said on the show many times, eventually the collection is going to outlive him. It's going to outlive all of us. So why not find a way to preserve this at the hands of people who have its best interests at heart?
Well, the thing about it is the items are going to outlast us.
Right.
But will the collection? And I think that is what they're trying to do, is by creating this museum, the collection will stay together. All that work that these collectors have put into in curating these pieces and bringing these collections together, and all the information and all the love and positive force behind what they're doing will be saved for future generations, ideally. I mean, Star Wars is certainly going to be around for at least another generation, probably multiples. I think it's going to turn into the Shakespeare of film. It's not going to be elevated from a dialogue perspective, but it's going to be elevated as what it has done to the industry and how popular it was, and ultimately this myth building that George Lucas put together is important to stick around. I mean, you can say George Lucas is building the museum that he's doing for illustration art and all types of art, but it's the movie stuff, it's the Star Wars stuff that's going to get a lot of people in the door in the beginning, I think. And that's what they seem to be leaning into with the promotional stuff that they're doing for the museum.
Yes, I've noticed that as well, of course, with the first 6 episodes of the film. It's going to be great. So all of these things are able to, as you said, make sure these collections, these memories last for many generations, because it's important. It tells, as anybody knows, a good myth, a mythology, tells the story of the people, their culture, and their values. And this is what it's all about.
Listening to Coffee with Kenobi, you are, with Dan Z, the podcast you're looking for. This is...
So how can listeners of Coffee with Kenobi support the Saga Museum and find the Saga Vault and support everything that all of you are doing to make this legacy so impactful?
Well, to watch Saga Vault, you go to YouTube and you search for either the Saga Vault or Cinema Relics, and you'll find it. Right now, we're in the process of releasing 11 episodes, possibly 12. We actually shot 12. We're not sure if we're going to release the 12th episode or not. I'd do it later on as a surprise. But either way, we're going to be releasing those 11 episodes. In those episodes, there are links to the Saga Museum, or you can just go to the Saga Museum or to RanchoObiwan.com and try and you can volunteer. You could donate money. You can donate pieces. There's lots of ways you can help. You can get the word out, especially if you're somebody who has a lot of Facebook followers or Instagram followers. Talk about the Saga Museum. Tell people about it. That's what they really need, is they need people to be aware of it, what they're trying to do, and why it's important.
Absolutely. Well, Dan, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on Coffee with Kenobi. You are certainly welcome to come on anytime. I'd be happy to talk collecting.
Sounds great, Dan. I appreciate that.
Anytime. Absolutely. Everyone, please be sure to subscribe to the Saga Vault and look at all of the work that Dan is doing. Dan, thanks again so very much, and best of luck to you now and in the future.
You too. Thanks, Dan.
For all things Star Wars, news, reviews, videos, and more, head to our home base, coffeewithkenobi.com. Don't forget to join the CWK Cafe on Facebook at coffeewithkenobi.com/community, our family-friendly, spoiler-free group for all your Star Wars thoughts, comments, and conversation. This podcast is possible thanks to the incredible support of the CWK Alliance. Want to help keep the show brewing? For as little as $1 a month, you can join the CWK Alliance and get access to CWK Pour-Over, our exclusive weekly audio and video podcast. Learn more at coffeewithkenobi.com/CWK Alliance. And know this, 10% of your monthly contributions goes directly to the St. Jude Children's Hospital. Want to connect? You can email me at danz@coffeewithkenobi.com, Follow me on X at Mr. Zer, MRZEHR, Instagram, Threads, at Dan Zer CWK, and Blue Sky. I'm also on LinkedIn. You can follow Coffee with Kenobi across social media on X, Instagram, Threads, Pinterest, and Blue Sky, and give us a like on Facebook at facebook.com/coffeewithkenobi. And if you want to send an email to the show, you can email us feedback at coffeewithkenobi.com. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, where you'll find over 700 videos, including past live shows, events, and this podcast. Please take a moment to rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. It really helps more Star Wars fans find our little corner of the galaxy. Do you need a speaker for your next event? Visit danzmedia.com. I love to discuss mythology, leadership, storytelling, or create something tailored to your audience. And finally, grab your CWK gear at coffeewithkenobi.com/shop and show your support in style.
This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company or Lucasfilm Limited. It is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com. Star Wars, all names, sounds, and any other Star Wars related items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Disney and their respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of Coffee with Kenobi unless otherwise indicated.
This is the podcast you're looking for.
There's no one here. Move along.